Hello, buds. A long time ago I taught you how to build a base, and now I think it's about time I throw my hat into the ring and show off some of the best and worst base locations. We'll talk about almost every unique location, and I'll tell you if it's one of the best, aka worth living in, or one of the worst that should be avoided, with a few notable exceptions here and there that I will note on. If you enjoy this type of content and want to see more, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe because it helps me out a ton. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the list. We're going to start by talking about a bit of a wildcard base, because I think that's a fun way to start a video. A boat base. Boat bases provide you with complete freedom. You can be on the shores of one biome one day and after a short sailing trip, be based up right next to a completely different one. It's basically the closest you'll get to having one of those Ark survival platform saddles in Don't Starve Together. Boats also come with the benefit of easy access to fishing, if you're into that sort of stuff, and you can actually keep fresh fish indefinitely, thanks to the tin fishing bin. Of course, there are some uglies of this base location, or lack thereof. Boats are obviously sinkable, and if you somehow manage to mess up and get a hole in your boat, your entire base could end up entering the abyss. You're also limited heavily by world gen, and most of the time, your oceans are going to take a whole lot longer to travel through than just simply walking there, even without a speed boost. Boat bases are also incredibly limiting. Yes, you can daisy chain boats by using those weird magnet things, but they can be a little clunky. And no matter what, you're limited to what you can fit within a circle. Boats are a great tool, not so much a great base. While I do have respect for all of you crazy people who trust all your stuff to a floating wafer, I do not think boat bases are generally a good idea. Next, let's talk about everyone's favorite crossover character, Jimbo. What are the benefits of living at a casino and Don't Starve, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that question, my friend. Jimbo is one of the best sources of early game bananas in Don't Starve Together. Bananas can be turned into shakes for hunger and sanity, or daiquiris for health, meaning you have all the stats you need from this guy right here. As an added bonus, Jimbo can also be cancelled or scored low on to force a fight, giving Wartox players easy access to souls, Wigfrid players easy access to combat, and every character can benefit from a little monster meat here and there. Jimbo also has an extensive loot table, so if you're good at Balatro, you can cash in gold, gems, supplies, you name it. I found that most of the time you'll get at least something out of this guy, and again, if you fail, the fights aren't that hard and are usually more rewarding than they are punishing. There is of course a slight downside to my friend Jimbo here, and that is his location. Jimbo is usually settled down near the frog fields, as I like to call them, and depending on how close he is, frogs could very well mess up your gaming trips. He also has a tendency to spawn near mosaic biomes, which I'll cover a little more in depth later on in the video, and you don't want to be near a mosaic biome, okay? I just want to make that clear. Regardless, I think Jimbo is one of the best base locations in the game. Just pay attention to your surroundings and maybe base a little further away if he's too close to a dangerous area, but still close enough to rack in those sweet, sweet gains. I love you, Jimbo. Next, let's talk about an island. More specifically, Lunar Island. Lunar Island is a place that most people will want to visit at some point in their playthrough, whether it's for progression reasons, getting access to that sweet stone fruit, or even just to explore. The Lunar Island has many benefits. Sanity will no longer affect you, hot springs can provide free warmth, and the island is usually very well lit depending on the moon cycle. Now, if you think that's all too good to be true, it does not come without downsides. It is an island, meaning the only way you can go between it and the mainland is boats or docks, and even if you have docks or a boat bridge, it's a long ways away from anything important. Sanity is also inversed here, with high sanity providing two negative effects. One, your screen will look like this. I mean, if you're a blue light maxer and enjoy this kind of stuff, go for it. But me personally, it hurts my eyes and makes me say screen for some reason. And two, Gestalts will harass you. They don't do any damage to you, so they pose no real threat. However, they will slow you down and put you to sleep, which can be incredibly annoying. Lunar Island is also naturally devoid of most basic resources. Grass in particular is nowhere to be found on this island, meaning you'll need extensive transplanting to make it habitable. Oh yeah, and not to mention, hound attacks are more dangerous on the island because hounds will revive once, and pangolins are always hostile on the island. While I don't think Lunar Island is the most awful base location, I'm gonna say do not base here. If you're a player who struggles with sanity, you're really better off just making some banana shakes from Jimbo rather than uprooting yourself and moving here. I will say there's a slight special notice about this place though, and that's that Wickerbottom is actually great for this place because she can spam her books and it has no effect because you have low sanity, which is basically high sanity here. But everyone else, yeah, no, I would skip this place. It seems alluring, but it's really not that great. Before we continue with the above ground section, let's dive into the caves for a little talk about them. Because in a lot of people's base rankings, I see the caves being pretty underrepresented. Instead of giving them a blanket rating, let's actually dive deep, get it, into each area of the caves. To make the rankings a little more digestible, I decided to split the caves into a few different zones. The outer section, where most entrances are located, the Midlands, where you have your muddy biome and your mush tree forests, the ruins, which is self-explanatory, and finally, we'll talk about a few special locations within the caves. Now before I continue this ranking, let's go over some general pros and cons to cave bases. These are going to apply to all of the locations that we are going to talk about, except for one area that's a little special. So here's the pros. In the caves, summer does not exist. Literally, there are no summer effects whatsoever down there. No wilting, no overheating, and no wildfires. But that's the only global positive effect that the caves have. As for negatives, well, the caves replace hounds with depth worms, which can be much more dangerous. Earthquakes can chip away at your health or even become downright destructive if you enable the rifts. Speaking of rifts, enabling those will cause acid rain, which is just awful, and you will constantly lose sanity, and as a little cherry on top, you'll have to deal with a loading screen every time you go to the surface, and because most things are on the surface, you'll be doing that a lot more than if you, say, based on the surface and wanted to go into the caves. But that's all for global effects. Let's go ahead and get down into each area and rank them accordingly. Remember, all of this stuff affects every cave biome unless I say otherwise. First up, let's talk about the outer caves. This area is one of the only areas in the caves with abundant natural light, meaning you can still get some form of a day-night cycle. This has more effects than you might think. For example, if you like farming, crops actually need sunlight to grow. Although you can replace the sun with a dwarf star every few days if you're rich or something. But bee boxes will only work within natural light zones. This is also the closest zone to most exits, meaning that you can leave without taking a long hike. Rock lobsters exist within this zone and they can help you manage the depth worm attacks, and its only downsides are the global ones that we already talked about. So I'll put it among the best. It's probably the best cave base if you don't want to take the full plunge into darkness and want some resemblance of a normal life. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the Midlands. Here we have everything that's more central in the caves, basically the muddy biome and the mush tree biomes of all different colors. This biome has tons, and I mean tons of light. Light bulbs are abundant, mush trees provide light, and lesser glowberries, you guessed it, provide light. Ironically, for a cave, this place can feel more lit than the overworld sometimes. It's also chock full of great filler in the form of cave lichen, if you can make it to the area just before the ruins, and it's also central, meaning that you can get anywhere within the caves pretty easily. The only downside I can think of when it comes to basing here is that you have to be careful of shadow rifts. Not shadow rifts, but like the little cracks in the ground that open when the nightmare cycle is on. The rifts are a totally different thing, but you get what I mean. Thankfully, once you find out where one of the shadow cracks are, you can simply just not base near it and you'll be fine. But they only make themselves visible during the nightmare phase. And you'll need to do a lot of transplanting because there are no natural resources down here. But give it enough time, and it's definitely a phenomenal base location, if cave bases are your jam. The deepest part of the caves is the ruins proper. Look, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. It should be no surprise that you do not want to base here. It's pretty much only downsides and no real upsides. Enemies are everywhere, the terrain is funky, the nightmare cycle is much more present than in the Midlands, and it will usually swarm you with nightmare creatures at all times. The cherry on top is that if you do decide to defeat the Fuel Weaver, not only will all those hostile mobs come back, if you accidentally place your base too close to a respawning structure, I'm like 99% sure it will destroy your stuff. The only benefit of basing here is easy access to the powerful Ruins loot, but Ruins loot is much better taken somewhere else, so yeah, there's nothing here that you can't get and bring over. Don't base here. Now let's move on to some more specific cave bases, starting with a lunar base. This is going to include the Lunar Grotto and the Archives for simplicity, and within the Lunar Grotto you will suffer from lunacy, which is a little more welcome in the caves thanks to the natural sanity drain. And the Lunar Archive is one of the most peaceful locations in the game, and it will all seem pretty great until you progress through the story and activate the Lunar Archive. Once you do that, both biomes become a complete war zone, and basing in either of them is not a great idea unless you don't mind just never progressing that side of the story. Next up, we have one of the newer biomes, the Fumarole biome. This place is basically the lava caves. While it does have great resources, most of them, like the boulder bow trees, can simply be moved elsewhere. If you want to live here, you have to deal with constant annoying heat alongside destructive ripples once the rifts are open. It's definitely a horrible base location that should be avoided, so just come here to get the boulder bow trees and then forget about it, honestly. I don't even think those new thermal tools are all that worth it. The final cave base we are going to be looking at before heading back up to the surface is an atrium base. Okay, I'll be honest, this place is, it's a meme base, and it's obviously going to be not recommended for much of the same reason that the ruins are not. However, it is the one place in the cave that never receives depth worm attacks. Yeah, no, this place is 100% certified butt cheeks. Even if you're a teleporting character like Wartox or Winona, the only reason to live here is if you're punishing yourself or trying to hide from other players on your server for some reason. Alright, time to head back up to the surface to talk about some more common base locations. For example, the Pig King. Here you have pigs that will work for you and fight for you alongside the infinite gold generator that is the Pig King. The only downside for a regular character that I can think of is that this place does have quite a few moles, which can be annoying if you're allergic to chests like I am. Yeah, this place is great for every character that isn't a monster or pig hostile character. Weber and Naughty Wartox will not be able to benefit from the pig's protection because they will actively attempt to hunt both of them, but they can still trade with the king, making it somewhat worth it. The same cannot be said for Wirt, however, who is both hostile to pigs and cannot trade with the king. So if you're Wirt, then this is one of the worst locations. Unless you want to like roleplay imprisoning the king or something, then go for it, that sounds pretty funny. I just want to add this on here, be very careful about full moons. I wouldn't actually base on top of the Pig King if you're not looking to eradicate all of the pigs first, because during full moons they become very, very aggressive. You've been warned. What about a Beefalo base? This is something a ton of players swear by, and it usually involves basing close to or inside of a Beefalo savanna. This provides the benefits of, you guessed it, Beefalos, who are usually able to handle any hound attack you throw at them with ease. Hell, I've seen them tackle Varglets without a single casualty. Of course, once you become a little better at combat, hound attacks become more of a chore rather than an existential threat, and Beefalo can become annoying during spring. But assuming you aren't basing directly on top of a herd and are just somewhat near one, it's really not all that bad, especially if you just aren't ready to tackle multiple hounds at once. Just be careful because Beefalo cannot handle seasonal bosses. Don't be bringing no deer clops over to your Beefalo, that's how you wipe out a whole herd. The swamp is a biome that most players are scared of, and for good reason. This place is just yucky. Full of hidden tentacles, angry fish guys, and mosquitoes. Thanks to monkey tails existing, its only lucrative resource, which is reeds, can be farmed in a better biome. So yeah, I don't recommend basing here. Now obviously Wort has more reasons to base here, however most of Wort's benefits come from the swamp turf, not the actual swamp biome. So you could also just live somewhere else with Wort too, just take some swamp turf with you. Except for the mosquito stuff, but while I'll admit I'm not a Wort player, I'm like pretty sure the mosquito stuff is super forgettable anyway. I've never seen a Wort player use the mosquito stuff. Then again, I don't see a lot of Wort players. There's not a lot of Wort players out there, are there? Let's go ahead and move to the 2 deserts, starting with Oasis Desert. Now this is going to assume that you're basing in the Oasis, because like unless you have a way to make it rain, the entire Oasis Desert outside of the Oasis becomes a miserable sandstorm during summer. Not all the time, but just during summer. On the bright side, wildfires do not exist here, so you're trading visibility and speed for no wildfires. I personally dislike this place, because I absolutely despise visibility limiters in this game. It's why I hate Humid Season from the Hamlet DLC so much. But I'll admit, this place is pretty good if you don't care about that, because you also get cactus and easy access to antlion to appease or fight the beast during summer. You could also just turn wildfires off though and live anywhere else. Nobody's gonna judge you, man. It's your game, your rules. Just if you really don't want wildfires, just turn them off. It's a single player, well, okay, it's not a single player game, it's a multiplayer game, but it's not like, you get what I mean, it's not a competitive game. Okay, let's not drag this out. The other desert is the Dragonfly Desert, signified by barrel cactus instead of the tree cactus that the Oasis Desert had. You don't get sandstorms or wildfire protection here, but you get tumbleweeds instead. I personally find this place to be the better of the 2 deserts to live in. With a little terraforming, it really can turn into a home with constant loot crates in the form of those tumbleweeds. Just don't base near Dragonfly for obvious reasons. And try to stay away from buzzards. They're really annoying early game. They're not too deadly, but they're just annoying. And after you open the rifts on the surface, the lunar ones, they'll become a lot more deadly if they somehow die. So yeah, I would not base near buzzards. They messed me up, man. I'm traumatized. Okay, let's go back into the ocean for this next one. We have Moon Cay. Now, here's the thing about Moon Cay Island. It has this little portal right here. Every 15 seconds, as long as you keep its area clean, it will have a chance to spawn free loot. Most of the time it's just gonna be twigs or grass, but sometimes you'll get more banana bushes or even monkey tails, which are reeds if you don't know. Now, the island does come with some downsides. You know, it's an island, meaning it's far from everything interesting, and it has some very, very annoying inhabitants. But you can make them go extinct if you really want to. Honestly, I wouldn't base on this island. Rather, just visit it for a few days to get some extra banana bushes or monkey tails and bring them home. The only thing you can't take with you from this island is the portal, and it's not that good. Like, it's really good, but it's not something that I would find game-breaking. Next up, we have the Mosaic. Let's keep this short and sweet. Don't base here. If the turf is marbled like this, assume that it is unsafe and do not place your base anywhere nearby, not even in surrounding biomes. Like, you want to make sure that you're a couple screens away from it. This is because meteors will fall, and they can and will destroy your stuff, including items you have on the ground. Yeah, there's no good reason to base here. Alright, finally, let's move on to the namesake of this video. The best and worst base locations. Let's start with the worst. By far, it has to go to Pearl's Island. At first, it seems like a chill island. You even get a roommate in the way of the Crabby Hermit, who's better known as Pearl. Or you'll get to know her as that later down the progression line. But the progression line is the entire reason why this place sucks. Eventually, Wagstaff will just kick you and Pearl off the island to turn it into like a war area. No, I'm not even joking. Unless you have no plans to finish the Lunar Quest line, you literally cannot live on Pearl's Island. Hell, I would even say that the Mosaic is better than Pearl's Island because at least there you have a chance to keep your base. The only thing that makes me so mad about Pearl's Island is that the game does not really tell you that you're gonna get evicted very, very later on down the quest line. So like if you spend a long time terraforming this island, you could just have to uproot and abandon it. Of course, I doubt anybody's doing the lunar questline who's not like extensively researching it, but you get what I mean. And finally, the best base location. You might not believe this, but I personally believe that the best base location in all of Don't Starve Together is the Florid Postern. Hear me out. This is a location that's almost always central on your map. It has its own safeguards against certain features like lunar vultures when you reach that stage of the game, and once you upgrade the portal, you can character swap all within your base, which is very convenient. Of course, sometimes you can get unlucky and have your postern spawn in a meteor field. I've heard of this happening, but I haven't seen it myself. But look, the glory of the postern base is that if you don't like its location, you literally spawn there. You can just re-roll the world seconds from loading in to get a new one. Not to mention, if you ever want your friends to play with you, it's super easy to get them to your base because they just spawn there. Or have them know how to get back because the postern has a map icon. Oh yeah, and if you play with Revive at the Florid Postern, which I know a lot of new players do, you have an infinite touchstone inside of your base. Truly, the only time I can see a postern base being bad is if you're on a random public world and don't want stuff stolen from you. But let's be real, if you're on a random public world, you should already know that nothing is safe anyway. They're public for a reason. But wait, before I end this list, I want to give one final really good base location, if you're willing to put in the effort, and that is the Moonstone. Why? Well, if you can do the Mooncallers event and leave the staff inside of the platform, you will get infinite light and cooling, meaning you don't have to worry about summer at all. Throw down a scaled furnace and you have a base that will permanently provide you with protection from both overheating and freezing. The reason I didn't put this as the best of the best is because it definitely does take a ton of setup. But if you're willing to go the extra mile, this is actually arguably the best location. The Moonstone is also usually in a good spot on the map, but sometimes World Gen can give you one that's really out of the way, which can be annoying. And yeah, I know I could have talked a bit more about certain biomes in the overworld, like the forest biome or the grassland, but those ones are sort of obvious and can vary widely depending on world generation. I wanted to cover the more obscure base locations in this video, things that I've seen people base at, and, you know, all that fun stuff. I didn't want to keep it too generalized, even though I generalized the caves, but I felt like the caves deserve some love. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. Check this video on screen right now for more, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!